fighting alligators and draining the swamp. So there's this idea that if you were just able to drain the swamp, the alligators that you had in the swamp would move away to somewhere else because there'd be no swamp anymore. But a lot of the time, what we actually find happens is we get stuck fighting alligators ourselves and forgetting that we even went in there to drain the swamp in the first place. Now, this is a really common thing that happens in business, and particularly something that happens to managers as they move higher and as they're interacting with more people, because you're in a position that you have expertise yourself, you know what to do, you know how to fight alligators. That's why you've probably moved to that next level, or maybe you've purchased a business, but in either case, you have the skills to fight those alligators, and quite often it's tempting to actually take that on and fight them yourself. So first thought, are you a bit of an alligator fighter yourself? Are you a champion alligator fighter? Is that what you want to do? So ways to look at that. So things you might think about is, you might be saying things to yourself like, I've been meaning to do that. I'll do it. I'll get to that when things settle down a little bit or get to normal. That's a really good sign that you might be fighting some alligators. Another one might be something like you find yourself saying, here, just give to me. I'll do it. I'll show you next time. Maybe it's even something as simple as like you find yourself thinking and sort of musing after work and just saying, I'd really love to sit down and plan, but I just haven't got the time to do it. So you can sort of notice there's a piece of it that is ownership based and it's really time based. So good triggers in your head to be able to look at that. So obviously, if you think about it though, if you're going to drain a swamp, you do have to fight a few alligators. Like the odds of getting to the middle of the swamp and putting your pump in and actually being able to drain it. And if we think about that in the context of problems, you are going to come up against a few alligators along the way. So it's not likely that you can just walk straight in, drain it, and be gone. But the important thing to remember here is that if you are going to drain a swamp, you do have to fight a few alligators. Let's not fight more than we really need to. So you want to pick those ones that are directly between you and that objective you have in the middle. So being really deliberate about the ones you fight. So now, in real life, obviously though, hopefully your job doesn't involve literal alligators and literal swamps, but some things that you might find instead that come in place, you're going to have these same problems presenting over and over. So a good way to look at this is when you find a pattern repeating over and over. So something like it might be the same person just coming to you for help over and over again, and it might even be for the same issue. That's a great example of it. It can be really frustrating and it feels like you're not making progress, and again, it's got that futility of fighting an alligator when you just want to drain the swamp. It could be just generally an overly dependent team where you're the bottleneck. So decisions need to come to you. There's certain work that can't happen, and you feel like if you're not at the desk, nothing happens. Where's that going? It might even be something as simple as just being a slave to a never-ending inbox. So you're just finding yourself all the time that I've got 70 unread, I've got 100 unread, I've got 200 unread. These are all really good signs that you're fighting alligators in your work environment. So several solutions to this. One to drill in on today though is really focusing on having a coaching mindset with your team and working to develop them. Now, just as a minor aside, training is definitely an element of coaching. I would refer to training as giving someone the skills to be able to do a particular task. Coaching over the top of that would be actually supporting someone in gaining the skills and creating an environment where they can have an experiential learning experience to be able to actually take on those skills for themselves. Because we all know if you think about a time in your life where you've had a major breakthrough, they're really personal and it's something that's happened within. So we've all taken advice and looked at it in retrospect and had people have said things to us and you go, oh, that's what they meant by that. Advice and common sense quite often isn't common until we've experienced that for ourselves. So if you can support people in having that and really giving them that framework and a space to grow within, you're going to see real exponential benefits of that, and suddenly all these alligators start going away. And that's what I talk about when I'm saying how you can drain the swamp there. So some ways you can do that. So obviously the first thing you have to do is identify that the situation is presenting itself and you've got an opportunity to actually drill in there and give a piece of coaching and support and guidance. And then beyond that, what you're looking to do is it's looking at having them to solve their problem themselves, and you're there as a support framework. So what you might do, to give a practical example, is you might actually ask them, rather than saying, here is the answer, you might say, fantastic, I've got some ideas around what we could do there. Talk to me about what comes to mind for you. So what are you thinking? And then you might have some other questions, like you might say something like that. So they give a basic example to start with. You might say something along the lines of, okay, cool, so that sounds good. Talk me through what you're thinking there. So what would that look like? What are the flow-on impacts of that? What would need to be true for that to happen? Another question that you might be able to ask to actually give them a bit more of a mental picture of it, because people are a lot more likely to actually do something and feel confident about doing it if they can first visualize it in their head. So you can ask questions that give them specifics. So you could say things like, what exactly might that look like? Or when would be the best time to do that? Or when do you think that's most likely to get done? The other thing you can really drill on and help them with is thinking about what the second order effects would be. So if we did that, what would be the flow and effects? Who would we need to tell about that? What would that look like? So all these questions, rather than giving them the answers, you're helping them on a journey to have that sort of epiphany for themselves that, if I did that, that would happen. That's what we're really aiming for here. So if you can help them be really visual about it, be specific about it, have a really good formed picture of it in their head, what it looks like, you're going to find that you get a lot more likelihood that they can go out and maybe fight some of those alligators for you. And then you can get back to the act of draining the swamp and actually putting the things in place that you need to. So what you're looking to do there, it's a quick 5 to 10 minute thing tops, but that 5 to 10 minutes is probably worth 100 minutes down the track, because what you've done then is you've given them the skill and the confidence and the support to be able to grow and build that framework for themselves. And then suddenly you find these things, like the same person coming to you for help, they're not asking you the same questions, they're elevating their questions every time. And if you continue this framework and model, you support people in growth, it's a really strong, enabling, empowering thing to do. You find their attitudes overall improve, and there's so many flow-on benefits of doing that. So what you really want to remember, next time you find yourself in a swamp, realize that you're in a swamp, right? So the first step, acknowledge, realize. But immediately, if you can pull yourself out of that moment, decide the alligators that you actually need to fight. So be really deliberate about them, and then take that time to work with the people. Don't just solve the problems for them. Don't just react. You want to be really deliberate, slow down, think about what you actually want to do, and then respond. Because in the end, if you only have to fight 3 alligators, that's a great result compared to becoming a champion alligator fighter for life. So slow down, think about it, realize that you're in a swamp, pick the alligators you want to fight. Until then, onward and upward.